My name is Susan Hurley.
I am Jasmine Hurley.
My childhood was happy to a point, but also strange in the sense that, looking back, there was abuse between my parents, and also that we lived with my nan for quite a few years until she died. I met your dad, Jason, at my school. He was going out with a friend of mine and he came one day to pick her up. My first impressions of Jason were that he dressed really well, he was handsome, and because he was slightly older than me and he was going through different things in his life at the time to what I was, I kind of looked up to him. At the beginning of our relationship, he was a bit kinder and he was also more willing to spend money on dates, but looking back, I can actually see a lot of red flags that I ignored at the time that I wish obviously I hadn't. I realised he was being abusive when he started to turn the abuse not just to me but towards Jasmine and her brother Deacon.
I thought my parents' relationship as a child was different to how my friends' parents' relationships were, and that my dad and my mum didn't seem happy. I never thought things were normal from the start. There was always an atmosphere in our house, and my dad used to get quite aggressive a lot of the time when I was growing up. They would argue, they would fight a lot, and he would always get sort of frustrated with me and my brother. My first childhood memories of my parents, my dad wasn't ever really as present as what my mum was. She would do a lot more with us and my dad really wouldn't, or kind of didn't have the patience to.
I didn't actually realise I was being abused myself at the time, because everything that was wrong in our relationship or wrong in Jason's life, it was always directed towards it being my fault. I felt angry when he started to turn the abuse towards Jasmine and Deacon.
It affected my childhood massively, and I was always scared of my dad and his temper. I remember one time when me and my brother Deacon were small, and my mum had to work 2 jobs at the time because we were in debt due to my dad, and he was constantly calling her saying, "Oh, when are you going to come home?" and I'm not going to be responsible for my actions. And out of frustration, he threw me and my brother onto the sofa.
He used the justice system to abuse us further. Cass had got involved, and being as he was narcissistic, he came across as obviously a person that he wasn't.
I didn't want to go, but it was court ordered, and the court and Cass essentially took my dad's side and didn't believe my mum at all, and were kind of monitoring her constantly and us constantly. And my dad always kind of used to say to them, "Oh, she's lying," or like, "She's making it up. I never used to do that. I never shouted or like abused my kids."
I feel stronger in a lot of ways, but you don't forget obviously certain things, and I feel like I'm always apologising to people for things that aren't my fault. I'm always blaming myself as the first point of call. It just makes you like different to what you should have been.
When growing up and entering relationships, it's affected how I communicate. I have an anxious attachment style as well, and it's hard for me to form healthy relationships with people, and I've never really had a proper, like when it comes to friendships, I've never had a long-term friendship with someone without kind of something always going wrong. Or I felt sad moving away from home, and when filming the documentary, and going back there, it made me realise how much I miss it and how a lot of the stuff I've blocked out or don't want to remember. But then again, I also understand why my mum moved away, or she had to move away, because my dad refused to move out when they were getting divorced. If I hadn't have done that, I wouldn't have moved here, and I wouldn't have met my partner Nathaniel, or like made the friendships that I have if my mum didn't. So I'm really glad that I have, and it's the best thing that's like ever happened to me.
I'd say to anyone that was going through something similar to me, mainly just that, things do get better, they don't stay that way, but it doesn't just happen. You do have to put the work in yourself, and obviously, like me, I was quite young, and I was quite fortunate to be able to move with my dad. But I would say that just keep going and don't fall into the same mistakes as like the people before you made, otherwise you just repeat the cycle.
I would say to be braver, even if you're told no, find a way to get out, especially if you've got children, because there's always going to be a reason for you to stay. But the sooner you get out, obviously the better it's going to be for yourself and your children.
My advice to someone who is being abused would probably be, well, first I'd listen to them and, be there for them. And I think my first advice was to find someone close that you can talk to about this, yeah? It doesn't have to be a therapist or a social worker or anything like that. Just someone, like a friend, family member, anybody like that, who is close to you that you could talk to and they will listen.
I would say to someone who is in a similar situation that I understand no one ever really talks about emotional or verbal abuse, or abuse in general. And I understand that it's hard and it's not easy, but I believe that you can get through it and push through, and you'll be so much better off.
I think my advice to someone who I knew that was being abused would differ on the person and the circumstances, but I think for the most part, talking it out with someone that you love, that you trust, is probably a good starting point. Be it a friend, a family member, a colleague, a co-worker, whatever it is. I personally haven't dealt with anything like this in my life, but I know loved ones that have, and I think talking can only mend things. And sometimes it can allow a person to give perspective on your life that you may not have. So by somebody else listening to what you are putting up with or that you were going through, it can kind of offer a new perspective, a new outlook on the situation.
My advice would be, don't fool yourself. Things won't get better. If you feel like someone is mistreating you, seek help. You are not too much, you are not overreacting, you are not oversensitive. Don't shut down, keep talking about your problems, and never let your abuser strip you away from your friends and family.
My advice is to get out there as soon as you can when it's safe to do so. So I'd probably start off with asking friends, family members, even the police, just to talk about what steps you can take to get out of that situation.
Regardless of whether it's your family, your friend, or teacher, or co-worker, although it is difficult to find the courage to speak up, doing so will enable those you tell to help ease you out of the situation. Unfortunately, by not speaking up about the situation, it will only continue and worse, potentially escalate. No one deserves to go through abuse, and everyone should be treated as they would treat others. You do matter, and you are not alone.
My life now, I'd say, is a lot happier. I think, considering everything we've been through, I'm very proud of how Jasmine, Deacon and Stephanie have turned out, which makes me feel like I've achieved something, and I'm moving on, being more confident and retraining myself to work in the beauty therapy industry, and start to do obviously something for myself again. I'd say that having my children are the only good thing that came out of. Obviously, I've achieved quite a lot. I've got my own house now, and everything's like slowly falling into place.